It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to another Real Estate Podcast, your largest real estate podcast library in Australia. Into the weekend as we talk property from Phillip Island to Rockhampton and every city in between. You can stream us to on multiple platforms, including right across this weekend on the likes of iHeartRadio and Amazon. It is a Saturday morning, April the 5th. No sooner have we started the 2025 year, are we in April? So this morning, we thought it'd be quite interesting to just look back over the first quarter with a bunch of these interesting interviews on real estate. In fact, on Monday, we're going to be back in Melbourne talking real estate. We're in the Gold Coast on Tuesday and on Wednesday in South Australia. So it's a good indication that we are all over the main cities, regional Australia as well. And if you would like to send us an email, don't forget our email address is myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
From the emotion of property, the economic inflation, managing your expectations, lack of stock, price growth, construction appetite, days on the market. Stay informed with us and know your property.
We cannot build enough homes. There's no other solution right now other than to build new homes. There's plenty of people already sharing, etc. So if our only option is to build homes, but we can only build anywhere between 12 to 15,000 homes a year currently, where do we take this from here? The government is trying to say that they want us to build apartments and that. But even if you were to, from an investor's perspective, if you were to be given land, you could not make the dollars work to be an investor and build apartments right now. So our only option, and Perth has a lot of land, it's just undeveloped. There's the government's releasing a lot of land in the far northern corridor and also the far southern corridor, but that doesn't really help people when they've now got to drive an hour and a half to work every day, all of a sudden having a three-hour commute, to and from work, whereas you could go to some of these inner city suburbs, go to a subdividable block and actually buy something that's affordable and live within 20 minutes of work, family, friends, etc.
Mike, stop it. You're talking way too much sense here.
That's the problem, right? Like, we can't fix this issue we have here in Perth. I honestly, I can't see it slowing down for the next 5 to 7 years. For the last 2 years, I've been sort of raging on about this, and I hear every naysayer saying the Perth property market's going to slow. The Perth property market's going to come down. We're going to have a crash. We're going to see, interest rates rise and interest rates drop. The truth about interest rates is it actually does not matter what the interest rate is. You should ask yourself two questions. Can I afford this, and will it make me money? And if the answer to both of those is true, irrespective of the interest rates, you should absolutely jump into the market.
Craig, I think reinvesting is probably one of the smartest things first home buyers can do. I mean, I did it myself, so I'm probably a little bit biased, but I think it's an opportunity where you can buy a property, you can put some tenants in, you're not necessarily having to pay the full mortgage yourself. I think if they're smart and look for the right type of property where they're going to see some capital growth, when they get to the point where they want to potentially sell it, move into it, or take that next step, they've got the capital growth along with the hand with the mortgage along the way. That allows them to take that proper step into the real estate market as well.
Anthony, first-home buyers, they've got to be highly organised. They've got to have a whole ton of things organised, don't they, before they even approach getting into the property market. PropTrack highlighted that many millennial investors are missing out on significant financial benefits. And they give this example of a brand new 3-bedroom house which could yield $10,000 to $15,000 in deductions in their first year alone. But not all seem to understand the depreciation and the tax incentives. Once again, it comes down to the basics, you've got to talk to the right financial people.
I completely agree. I think it's really interesting that it is the great Australian dream, but so many people know so little about what they need to do. So tax depreciation is definitely, we spoke earlier about rent vesting, but if you are rent vesting and you own an investment property, you'd be crazy not to get a tax depreciation schedule done. It will reduce the tax, it depreciates the property and gives you a really clear understanding of, how things are depreciated and what you can claim back. So I think if you are rent vesting, that's 100% one of the first things you should do is go and get that done. I think some of the other things is, I think a lot of the young people will potentially just go and use the bank that their parents have been using because there's a track record there. So I think another way for first home buyers to save some money is to really go and do their research, go and see a few mortgage brokers, make sure that they're getting the best deal in the marketplace at the moment. And banks are really competitive right now. So, the difference between just going to a bank and sort of negotiating and getting a good deal could save you thousands of dollars a year as well.
We have population positive, and we certainly started that during COVID. As a real estate agent, my phone never rang as frequently from out of town as it did in COVID. And in that period, it absolutely was the people moving. It was family, friends, it was those who could work remotely, it was those working in national or federal educational or government jobs where they could pick up and relocate to somewhere far more affordable, no travel. People were eliminating 2 hours of travel in their day by relocating to our city centre. And our city centre is already a fantastic size, but population well over the 200,000 mark now. We really do stand out in the regional sphere for Queensland. Gladstone and Rockhampton are beautiful towns, but they don't shine as brightly as us.
I think real estate has incredible opportunities, but I think that there is a misconception about how quickly or potentially easily people can get to that top percentile of agents operating. The majority of agents, it takes them a lot longer than I think what they anticipate to get their momentum going. So you've got to learn the right habits. You've got to set yourself up correctly from the beginning if you're going into sales. And then you've got to build, a digital footprint. You've got to get to know the community. You've got to learn how to transact and negotiate. So there's quite a lead time. And the ones who do exceptionally well, I guess I don't want to say less common, but there are quite a few who don't quite get to where they think it's going to be. I think it looks quite glamorous from the outside. It's a bit harder than I think what it looks like for those coming in.
When it comes to sales, you can never, ever pick who is going to make a great salesperson. It's the most unlikeliest of person. Sometimes they come through and you go, wow, where did that come from? I did not see that coming.
Yeah, and I think the consumer has changed. I think that now what they really want is someone who's authentic, who they can find easily, but someone who they can really relate to and who can demonstrate how they're going to get a better result for them. So I think it went through a stage where it was all about digital, but I think it's really coming back to that necessity to have the balance of being able to interact with people, sit down around the table, the old school real estate supported by the new way of the digital technology there.
Yeah, and while rate cuts play a role in the housing demand, also got to have a look at these other factors like investor interest, migration trends. Gee, how is that going to sort of play out during 2025? And local economic conditions. All of that really does matter just in terms of what happens with not only the interest rate, but the calendar year of real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the other factors that we're looking out for in 2025 that could influence the market are things like a normalizing level of overseas migration. Obviously, we got a lot of catch-up migration in 2022 when borders reopened to overseas migrants post-COVID, but that is starting to settle down now. And in most regions, it is settling back down to pre-COVID averages. So that will affect probably rental demand, first of all, because overseas arrivals are more likely to rent when they first arrive in Australia. That could in turn affect the investment proposition for some markets. The other thing is that investor activity rose very strongly through 2024, and that pushed up values, particularly in Queensland, WA and South Australia, which attracted a higher share of investment activity through 2024. Now, investors, believe it or not, have affordability considerations as well. There will come a point where prices get too high that the house or unit doesn't deliver the same kind of return that it may have done over the past few years. And for that reason, we think investor activity could be a little softer, particularly in those states through 2025, even if interest rates move lower.
Now, Trent, what about what the experts are saying? This transition from a white hot to a red hot market, some people might not know what that means.
Yeah, exactly right. It's exactly what the Perth market is. White hot being absolutely boiling over the pot, to red hot meaning your pasta's getting cooked nicely. At the moment, people are looking at the data in this isolation of a 4 or 5 month period and saying, oh, Perth's market's cooling. But the reality is we're coming off of a 70% increase in growth in most notable suburban areas in Perth over the last 5 years. And there has to be a point at some time where people are a bit fatigued. They're taking a second to think. They're taking a second to get their pre-approvals reassessed because they can't buy what they were trying to buy 6 months earlier and missed out on. And that is what happened over that last quarter of Perth. One thing that we're pretty confident on, and I'm pretty strong on, is the demand-supply relationships in Perth have not improved, in that we haven't figured out how to supply the amount of houses that we currently need for the amount of people coming into Perth. And that when you think about just basic relationship with affordability, Perth's median salary is higher than Sydney's. Sydney's median house price is nearly double Perth's. We pay the same interest rates. We have the same laws about serviceability with all the lenders in the country. And so nominally, Perth's theoretical affordability cap is actually Sydney's price, because you can see where Sydney's obviously maxing out from affordability levels rather than really demand and supply. So we've actually got still a lot of fat to go. So for us to come off these 23, 24% growth years and come back down to, let's say, 10%. It is white hot to red hot. It is not slowing to negative. That is, we don't have that capacity to be going backwards where sellers need to sell more than buyers need to buy anytime soon.
Absolutely. And opportunities to spend that didn't exist for us 20, 30 years ago. And it's a really big cultural shift. The way that young people interact with the way they purchase, it's just completely different. And I think it's not their fault. And it's really hard to live in an environment where you are being sold to constantly on your phone, online, no matter where you are, you're getting messages and sales prompts all the time. And it is very difficult to have that temptation constantly and those habits constantly and to not spend. It's very, very different to what we grew up with. And in fact, when I bought my first property, I was in far north Queensland and shops weren't even open on a Sunday. So it was very difficult to spend money on a weekend. You could only go to the shops on a Saturday, and Sunday, the only essential shops like grocery stores were open. You compare that to someone today who can shop in bricks and mortar stores. They can be on social media and purchase something from anywhere in the world with the click of a few buttons. We need to really actively consider some of these things, and we can't expect the same from young people today that we had 20, 30 years ago, when the culture has shifted so much and the situation is just so different. It is a lot harder to say no and to stop spending when the opportunities are plentiful and relentless compared to what we had.
Yeah, so social media, in other words, is costing you an arm and a leg. If you actually destroy your phone or go to one of those real basic phones, you're going to save money in the long term. And it reminds me of a story about the actor Christopher Walken. He has not got a cell phone, never had a cell phone, has never sent a text in his life, has never sent an email. I just think, who's better off here, eh? Christopher Walken or all of us walking around with that digital footprint in our pocket?
Oh, 100%. I think he definitely has more freedom and less mind clutter, thinking about all of these things all the time. It's a consideration that I think people don't give enough attention to. The fact that eating out when I was growing up, when I was a child, eating out for dinner was for such a special occasion. It happened on birthdays and a few times a year. It was not something we did all the time. These days, eating out or getting food delivered, for a lot of people and a lot of families, that happens several times a week. And if you just take something like that and look at the impact that has on your finances over time, that has an incredible impact on your ability to save and on your habits when it comes to spending. It is so easy to rack up these kind of money leaks and for them to impact your ability to save, your emergency funds, your ability to pay for your bills. Add on to that the fact that getting credit, whether it's a credit card or buy now, pay later, is really quite easy these days for people to spend money they don't have. And then you add into that the fact that the prospect of buying a home for a lot of people seems so impossible and such a far off dream. They've kind of abandoned it and decided instead, I'm going to enjoy my life and spend my money on things that bring me happiness day to day.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.